putting a little $sign carrot in front of you. By the age of 65, you'll be able to retire and you'll be happy, but give me 40 years of your life.
Luke Belmar,
a 28-year-old entrepreneur, investor, and internet personality
who took the internet by storm with his success in digital advertising, e-commerce, and investing in crypto and NFTs.
What e-commerce taught me was a few foundational skills. One is that marketing and distribution are more important than the product. If you have a great product, but nobody sees it, you're fucked. Number two, sales. If you want to make money, you have to sell.
Why are you so bullish on Pudgy Penguins?
I'm an equity shareholder in Pudgy. It was not an investment in the project. It was me betting on Luca.
Do you think university is a scam?
Absolutely. Imagine being in a scenario where I'm a business and I've convinced my entire population that in order to get a job, you have to go through me. Now you have all these motherfuckers that have more degrees than a thermostat and have no real experience. And if you can adapt your mindset to understand that money is a lagging indicator of success. The money that you get today isn't because you did something today. The moment you stop doing those things, then the future gets corrupted.
How can someone become a contrarian investor?
Develop your own investing thesis, understanding that investing isn't gambling. When you don't overspend and you don't operate out of a place of greed or operate out of a place of need, you can start making better value-based decisions.
Let's talk about investing.
We have like Monad and different projects that are in that ecosystem. They're absolutely going to skyrocket. I see Monad going to like $30 to $50 billion valuation.
Is there another crypto project or community that you're super bullish on?
My answer to that is
okay. Do you want to tell people how we got here today? Because it's a really cool story. It's a really interesting story.
It's an interesting story. So long story short, you hit me up in the DMs and you're like, yo, let's chop it up on my podcast. I'd seen some of your clips. You'd had Luca, which is one of my business partners, on here. I saw that you had some dope people and I was like, yeah, but then you also had some people I'd met, you know, had talked a little bit of shit about me. So I'm like, should I give this guy the time of day? And then you're like, bro, no, it wasn't, it's out of context. Don't take it too seriously. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. Let's chop it up. So here we are today, bro.
Yeah. Also, I'm super excited to have you, man. So maybe as a start, we are still in January 2024.
Yes.
It's the first month of the year. And you wrote to your followers, 2024 is about getting wealthy in finance, health, mindset, relationships. This is the year of abundance in all areas of life. Do you think it's possible to master all of these at the same time, especially when you haven't made it yet?
Define made it. I define made it simply by being alive and by believing that you can become better. By having hope, I think that that's the first step. I think if you just have the perspective that you have opportunity to develop, I think that it's possible, you know, because when you begin to think about wealth by definition, you know, you have this concept, people are like, oh, this is a wealthy man or this is a wealthy family, but they're only talking about money. And wealth by definition isn't money alone, it's abundance. So what are the areas of your life that you're supposed to figure out or continue developing in order to develop this wealthy, well-rounded life? And this idea of, well, are you going to always get to the place of mastery? No, right? There's always somebody that's going to have more money. There's always going to be somebody that's more ripped. There's always going to be somebody that has a better looking girl. It's just inevitable that there's always somebody that's going to have potentially some perspectives or some aspects of their life that are better than yours. But I think having that focus of not being one-dimensional, of being like, because you were telling me, you know, hey, dude, I was in business, I traveled the world, lived in all these super mega metropolis, and then I went back home and my health was fucked. So it's like, were you wealthy? You had all these experiences, all these things, but you had a foundational thing that wasn't in check. So I think just having the mental kind of parameters of understanding that you don't have to neglect your health in order to make money. You don't have to not talk to your mom or your parents for 2 years because you're hustling and grinding in the business. No, there's a place of balance, and that's where I would define wealth.
That's really interesting because, I mean, if we're where we are today, we might have come across a podcast that Naval Ravikant released in 2019 or 18, which is...
The one with Joe?
So basically, he did one kind of like on his own based on all his tweets, which is... how to get rich
without getting lucky.
Without getting lucky, right? Exactly. And then he went on Joe, and then and that's how I discovered him, right? Through Joe. And then I went to this first podcast, which is 3 hours and a half. And one of the key points there is money is not going to make you happy, but it's going to help you get to a kind of stage of life where you can then focus on what really matters. And so what he advises is you should kind of make yourself almost miserable to make money as quickly as possible to then get onto the real things in life. But it's
I
not
agree.
really what you're saying.
Well, I wouldn't say misery, but I would say, how can I make the most amount of money expending the least amount of time? Because time is the valuable asset that allows you to then explore other things. And if you're every single day expending 10, 12 hours just working to make money, then you're neglecting every potential other area of life that is beneficial. You know, I was doing some research as to how the feudal ages kind of operated, and the peasants and the feudal lords and the kings. And you begin to look at the work schedule of the peasants. These motherfuckers only worked 150 days out of the year. They didn't work 300 days out of the year like society teaches us today. So you have the peasants, the working class, by definition, peasant means just working class, back in the day, only working half of the year. So here we are as fiat slaves working 300 days out of the year, assuming that money is the most important thing. When it's all said and done, how much money do you actually need in order to live a wealthy, highly successful, fruitful life? Not a ton of money. You don't have to have billions of dollars to get there.
What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is figure out a level of comfort that matches your lifestyle. And it depends on everybody, right?
Absolutely.
And then don't overspend. Don't get to the place where you spend because you want to compare yourself to others, and don't fall for the trap of consumerism. If you become a consumerist, you're always going to have to make money in order to spend. But if you're a producer and not a spender, then you're focusing on how can I create things of value in the marketplace that eventually allow for opportunity and money to flourish.
So essentially become a producer and live below your means, which is kind of true freedom. Because if you live below your means,
You don't have to worry.
you're never going to worry. Exactly. You talked about how do I make as much as possible by spending as least time as possible? What are a few answers to that? For example, in this podcast again with Naval, he talks about leverage, right? Talks about financial leverage, human leverage, so human capital, and then you have obviously the one that's like the best today. I mean, code and media.
Yes, I agree. So I was actually with Meow, the co-founder of Jupiter Exchange, at dinner today, and we were talking about what is the single most important super weapon that an entrepreneur can have, and it's leverage,
Yep.
right? And money gives you leverage. So my opinion is some people will value money more than I. What are these individuals? Usually the ones that don't have a lot of money. So I can give them money in exchange for their time and in exchange for their energy. So these people will help me accomplish my goals and my dreams. But now, like Naval says, it gets even crazier because now you can have little bots running around working 24/7. They don't get tired. They don't disobey. They don't clock out. They don't lie about their timesheet. They actually perform, and you can backtrack all of their effort and all of their work, and they can work 24/7. So leverage your money, your resources, your connections in order to automate as many areas of life, both with people and AI bot tools, in order to get to the next level.
And this is what you're doing. focusing on-
100%. Yeah. Capital Club now has about 160 employees full time. About 65 of them are media distribution team. So I'll create a piece of content like this podcast, and it'll probably get, I don't know, over the next year, 100 million views. So I'll distribute that through short form content, and I have people that do that. So instead of being like, okay, let me go out and create 50 pieces of content, I'm just going to create one piece of high value content and then allow other people, through paying them, to distribute it and utilize their resources, their time, their energy, and their attention towards my goal.
You said 160 people, right?
Yeah.
What's your approach? Because for me, what I really realized is, and it's completely linked to this notion of leverage, but also fixed versus variable costs. And when I made this change in my business, it changed everything. Full-time employees versus contractors, or kind of like remote teams that are hired by the job versus by their time, right? And so if you do that, everything becomes variable and much less risky.
Yes.
How do you approach? Because I think it's more of you're what, 28, 29?
Yeah. 28.
That's like an approach that's much more like from our generation. Whereas, for example, the first company I built in London, like 25 people. I wanted, because I was in the old mindset, the old Swiss mindset. So I was like, I want Swiss quality, which is the freaking most expensive people on earth. And I want them full time because I want the pride of saying, hey, I'm giving a job to these people and participating to their retirement and all that stuff. But then you have all this freaking stress, you know, and it was a consulting business. So it's like the worst type of business, unscalable. And then when I started to make the switch, I realized, man, like this is such a no-brainer. And then you can apply it to anything, right?
So I look at it a little bit different. I look at when I pay people or when I hire people, I'm investing into them, right? So I'm investing into their self-development. I'm investing into their progress. I'm investing into their education. I'm investing into their experience. So how foolish would it be of me to build somebody up for 2 years as a contractor or as somebody that's a freelancer, and then they're going to charge more for their services later on. They're going to go work for somebody else, or they're going to go build their own stuff. I want to create an ecosystem where my people can grow within my organization. It's so hard to find top tier talent, but if you can find top tier talent, I want them to come work for me, and I want them to come work with me. So that means sometimes you have to give them the freedom to operate and to create. Steve Jobs, I think, said, you know, the job of the CEO, the job of the business owners to recruit talent. And if you find A players, just get out of the fucking way and let them operate. So when you see Capital Club, when you see, you know, billions of views online, that's not just Luke. It's people that are super, super developed, helping me accomplish certain goals and dreams. So I see it as, yeah, I have 160 full-time staff members. There is a lot of headaches and overheads and things like that, but they're all fixed cost. And that's one side. 2, I see it as an investment into them long-term. And then 3, I never spend money that I don't have, right? And that's something that I always kind of pride my company of, is we always underspend so much from what we make, so that, once again, like your personal expenses, you don't have that, oh, how can I get to the next paycheck? I don't want to live that way. I don't want to have to go and raise money or get investors because I can't make it. So I scale in proportion to our income.
Do you think that A players stay or go on to leave and build their own thing once they realize how much personal leverage they have, right?
Depends, because not everybody that's an A player is an entrepreneur, or not everybody that's an A player is a self-starter, and not everybody that's an A player wants to go out and do their own thing, or can take on the risk of going on and, you know, funding a business, building a business, or being a CEO or an executive. Some people are just phenomenal videographers, right? Some people are just phenomenal human resource managers. Some people are just phenomenal accountants. So I just want to polish them, refine them, and then give them a value ladder of scalability within my organization. Eventually, that obviously for the high tier individuals leads to shares, leads to options in the company, but that's just inevitable, because the goal isn't to own 100% of zero, right? If you own 100% of something that's not worth anything, cool, you're the only guy involved, but you don't have shit. So sometimes you have to share, and that means splitting the pie so that the pie can get bigger. I'm all about sharing, bro.
That's such a key concept, actually. And you have, often when you start companies, you might have like 2 or 3 co-founders, and then you have this ego at play, right? Who has more, and like, why would we split equally? And you're like, man, first, it's all about not what happened before, it's all about what happens in the future. And second, 33% of like something much bigger is worth much more than 100% of something much smaller. Absolutely.
And it's also the energy and time thing, right? So if I have co-founders, now I have I have more heads, I have more energy, more time. And that's going, if they're the right people, that's going to accelerate growth and accelerate development, accelerate the achievement of your goals a lot faster.
Absolutely. So you said you have 160 employees, you're 28, which is really impressive. You've done a lot of pretty amazing things since probably in your 20s, right? Since
I started my entrepreneurial journey in e-commerce in 2016. I started buying my first Bitcoin, $588, 2015, but it was, you know, tinkling and playing around. But my entrepreneurial swing and actually becoming a proper entrepreneur, 2018.
Where does this hunger and huge fire in the belly come from?
When you're broke, brother, you have nothing to lose, dude. I don't want to live a life of regrets. Like I said, I was talking with Meow, and I said, dude, imagine being on your deathbed And cool, everybody thinks that you're successful. Cool, everybody thinks that you have a lot of money. But you yourself, you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I could have done more. Or, I didn't go for it. Dude, I just don't want to deal with that shit. I don't want to be in a situation where I regret the fact that I gave up the gift of life to settle for mediocrity or to settle for less. And money, like we talked about, gives you access to opportunities. So talking about Switzerland, for example, if I didn't have money, I wouldn't be able to visit Zermatt. I wouldn't be able to visit Geneva. I wouldn't be able to visit these incredible, beautiful places. So I want to experience life. And in order to experience the fullness of life, I just have to work a lot harder than the average individual in order to experience more things.
Absolutely. And the I don't want to have regrets. I mean, one of the key things that we're all looking for in our, probably in our life, right? But when you're a high achiever since early 20s, you're like, okay, how do I get happy, truly happy? And in the beginning, we kind of like mistakenly think that it's the money or the businesses or the girls or all this shit, right? But then you realize, and I think it was Andrew Tate who was saying that, which I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but he also talks a lot of truth, right? And one of these things was something like, when you work really hard on something, it's not about the result. It's knowing that you're giving your best.
Yes.
Will make you happy, right? And will make you have no regret. And it's much less about the actual result of like, was I successful? Rather than just, I gave my best, right? And if I give my best and I'm in the hustle, and actually you see it, right? When you build businesses, the best moments are when you're struggling.
Yes.
And you're having these goals. And when you kind of like reach these big milestones, could be first million or first 10 million or another kind of business goal, right? You realize, fuck, that's it. Like that's not like the thing that really makes you happy. So
I think people have like short-term goals, and many times they attribute happiness to that achievement of that goal instead of that goal just being another stepping stone to their development, and understand that, dude, life is long.
it's kind of infinite. It's an infinite game.
It's always, you're going to have to wake up the next day. You're going to have to perform. If you don't exercise, you're going to lose your physique. If you don't continue taking care of your family, if you don't continue elevating, if you don't continue leveling up, what you don't use, you lose. And that's the thing about life, is the people that are unsuccessful think that somehow you achieve one level of success and then you stop.
Yeah.
And then it's, sit under a palm tree and chill.
When I'll get
it doesn't
my
work that
million,
way.
when I get to my first million, I'll change my life. Which I always say, if you would change your life when you reach a certain number, you should change your life already now, because it means that you're not going to be happy that day. That's not going to change anything.
Yes. Right? And because it's a mindset play, bro.
Yeah.
It's a mindset play. And if you can adapt your mindset to understand one very basic principle, which is every single day, if you were to evaluate your life like building a house, every single day you get to lay one brick. How are you going to lay that brick? Are you going to lay it with precision, accuracy, love, care? It's your house.
Yeah.
Like, why? You're not going to build it like shit. Like, why would you build it like shit? It's where you're going to live. It's where you're going to reside. So every day I get to set up a block, and not every day I do it right. Not every day I do it well. But if you go with the intention of being like, hey, I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my actions, the good stuff, the bad stuff. I get to establish and set this brick for today, and understand that tomorrow I'm going to have to set the brick again. The brick that I set up yesterday, right, in my life to continue building, doesn't matter. What I do today counts. And I made a post saying that money is a lagging indicator of success.
Yeah, I saw that.
And money is a lagging indicator of your efforts. So the money that you get today isn't because you did something today. We're here today, not because of what we did today, but because of what we did over the last couple of years that led up to this moment. Absolutely. And the moment you stop doing those things, then the future gets corrupted.
You don't see it directly. That's the thing. And in the beginning, when you get successful, the first time, you can become complacent,
yes.
right? We talked about that with Luca on the podcast, actually. And we probably all made this mistake, or I don't know for you, but like most of us. And then you're just there like, oh, if I just do nothing, it continues to freaking rain, right?
Yeah, it happened to me, bro. It happened
until it doesn't,
yeah.
And then you get completely fucked. And then, anyway. So that's a super interesting one, actually. I think even Jeff Bezos talks about that. We're building, what we're doing today, he says in business is going to happen in 3 years. So it's kind of like an extreme version of that.
And it's also, it doesn't just apply to business and to life. If I'm the captain of a ship and I know the destination where I'm going, 99% of the time, I won't see the port of destination. I won't see it. I have to understand that if I just travel and I do what I'm supposed to do, eventually I'm going to get there. The captain doesn't say, well, just because I can't see the port of destination, I'm not going to leave. I'm just going to stay here and wait. No. With vision, right, and understanding and belief and knowing where you want to go, you set the trail, you set the path, and you work towards it every single day.
You talked about these bricks, right, that you're kind of setting in a certain way. And you grew up in Argentina,
Yes.
right? So we all grew up in different places. You grew up in Argentina, I grew up in Switzerland. And the place where we live, the environment, the culture we grow in, obviously is going to impact and limit our beliefs
Yes.
and our self-beliefs. What's acceptable? What's not? What's possible? What's not? How does the young Argentinian, Singaporean, American, or even Swiss teenager, or let's say, early 20, deprogram himself and sort of, as you'd say, like get out of the matrix to set himself up for insane success?
So first is understanding that you're not what your religion tells you are. You're not what your parents tell you are. You're not what your friends tell you are. In fact, you're not even what you tell yourself you are, because you don't even truly understand your limitless potential. So when you live in a situation whereby you're limited by the opinions and the insecurities and the projections of other people, what you're doing is you're limiting your potential and your growth for self-development. And the first part is understanding that you can become whoever you want to become. If you want to become successful, you will become successful. If you want to become rich, you will become rich. If you want to become literate, you will become literate. If you want to become well-traveled, you will become well-traveled. But you can't want something and then do another 100 things that are an antithesis or completely opposite to the goal that you want. So if I want to get rich, well, I'm going to have to pay the price. If I want to travel the world, I'm going to have to pay the price. And most people, they want something, they wish things, but they don't truly want them and then work towards them. So know where you want to go, know what you want, and then don't want other 100 things that are completely opposite to the achievement of that goal. So you don't have to have a ton of goals. Establish, 2, 3 goals, things that are easily executable and easily achievable. You don't have to go out and make $1 million tomorrow. No, relax. What is the next book about business and leadership that you should read? How should you be working out and eating and taking care of your health? How do you treat your relationship with your mom and your dad and your siblings? Well, that's going to easily translate into how you treat your business partners. So how you do the small things is how you do the big things. And like I said before, you just master building that foundation, building those little bricks day by day. And once you zoom back out, you'll see the beautiful creation, the beautiful artwork that you've built with your life. And it'll be a masterpiece for everybody to observe and be like, this guy lived a great life.
And maybe to kind of take off of the magic, right? Oh, this person is so successful, or this person is so fit. There's a process behind everything.
Yes.
There's a process behind everything. You want to get
Everything,
fit, like you can count your macros and train 4 or 5, times a week. Go with a PT. You want to build wealth. There is a process to build wealth. You want to build a business. You want to build a personal brand. There's a process behind every freaking thing, and it's kind of boring once you understand that, because you're like, man, I'm just repeating the same shit every day. But that's where most people kind of fail, because we're all looking for like the thrill and the thrill of the new thing. But actually, all these things that we need to do to like get successful in one area or another of life is just based on processes.
The process and in the preparation, you have to, if you want to become a billionaire, if you want to become a millionaire, you have to develop the philosophies, the ideas, the habits, the work ethic of this type of persona, of this character, in order to then become that type of individual. Abraham Lincoln famously said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 5 sharpening the axe. So it's not about just the hustle, and it's not just about the grind, it's about the preparation, it's about the effort, it's about the dedication. Yeah, you see Usain Bolt, right? On stage with the gold medal. You see Michael Phelps on stage with the gold medal, but you don't see jumping in the pool for fucking 10 years. You don't see having to run sprints in the middle of Jamaica in the heat for decades. No, you don't see that. But it's easy to criticize, the people sitting in the red carpet or standing on the red carpet from the motherfucking carpet of your own home when you have really nothing to do or you haven't accomplished anything. So it's understanding that it's a process, understand that there's a lot of sacrifice, brother, involved in becoming somebody great. And it's going to require literally your life force energy to materialize these dreams into reality.
It's really interesting that we talk about that because I wrote a bunch of things around that. Public rewards versus private practice. So I think it's today or 2 days ago. There was Tony Robbins on a podcast called My First Million Podcast, which we all know. And he talked about the concept of it's what you do in the dark that puts you in the light. And then he gives the example. You gave some example. He gives the example of Stephen Curry. 500 shots a day, 3,500 shots a week, 180,000 shots a year, 2.7 million shots in 15 years of practice. Out of 16,000 game shots with 3,500 makes, he's one of the best of all time. Less than 0.1% of his shots are seen in a game. Can you give some personal examples that show that success all comes down to obsession, sacrifices, practicing day in and day out, being consistent, patient, and persistent?
Yes. I would probably attribute it at the beginning of my career. I would say e-commerce, building an e-commerce business has taught me foundational skills that then translate into everything else that you do. So people say, well, I'm going to go do one job like sales, or I'm going to go do e-commerce, or I'm going to go build a digital marketing agency, or I'm going to build a data analytics company. But what are the skills that you're learning? No, you're not just building a data analytics company. You're learning how to become a CEO. You're learning how to become a leader. You're learning how to become a well-polished individual. You're learning how to balance a checkbook. You're learning how to balance emotions. You're learning how to balance your employees' emotions. So what e-commerce taught me was a few foundational skills. One is that marketing and distribution are more important than the product. So if you have a great product, but nobody sees it, you're fucked. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter if you're in crypto. It doesn't matter if you're in finance. If nobody knows what you have to sell, nobody's going to see it. So one of the essential skills that I learned is I need to learn how to garner, manage, and distribute my product. Number one. Number two, sales, right?
Absolutely.
If you want to make money, you have to sell. You have to sell. Now, in order to make money and sell, there's 3 areas that you need to master. Number one, you need to be the best at what you do. You don't want to get hired for being cheap. You want to get hired for being the best. Number two is what you do in sales needs to be in high demand. You don't want to be selling Eskimo, an Eskimo ice. People are like, I can sell anything to anybody. Yeah, but that necessarily doesn't mean that you're going to be able to make a ton of money. So what you need to do is needs to be in high demand. You need to be the best at what you do. And then finally, you need to be irreplaceable, right? Can you be replaced by AI? Can you be replaced by somebody else? That's a question that needs to be answered. So I figured out in sales, I need to be the best at what I do. So if I'm selling a product or a service, people need to see me as a person of reputable standards. I need to be in high demand. So what I'm going to be selling needs to be in an evergreen niche. We saw so many, hype niches or themes come up in crypto over the last couple of years, all sorts of shit, but they were just fads, right? It wasn't sustainable because it wasn't in high demand. And then finally, you need to be, like I said, the best at what you do in high demand, and you need to be irreplaceable. So can somebody replace you? So when you look at your skill sets, you need to ask yourself, well, what now can AI not replace? So what are you building today that AI can't replace? I was telling recently another podcast host, I had the privilege to ask a couple questions to one of the co-founders of OpenAI many years ago before I launched Capital Club. And he told me, I asked him, hey, should I build an AI company? He's like, no, don't build an AI company. Build an AI-proof company. Build something that AI will never be able to replace. Because he's like, you're going to go building AI with who? Against all the MIT kids, Stanford kids, against all these nerds, all these think tanks. So you're going to have a very hard time. But if you can establish a moat as to what is something that AI cannot replace, like self-development, community, personal growth, then you have the ability to sell in a way that AI can't replace. So marketing, distribution, and sales are the 2 kind of beacons and pillars that I've established as essential necessities for winning in business.
And on the top of that, authenticity.
For sure, bro.
Because a lot of people think that being good at sales is being good at bullshitting, right? The thing is, if you do that, you'll get people for the first round, but they'll never come back, and you're gonna ruin your reputation.
What I tell people, just to follow that, is if you sell something to somebody that they don't need, you're not a good salesman. You're a con artist. So when you sell, you need to sell ethically, and you need to sell understanding that you're there to serve people.
Absolutely. Basically, how can I provide you as much value as possible? And that's my problem. Not ask for anything because you make the assumption that, but the smart people, they'll understand, like, oh man, you're giving me something, I'll give you something back, right? It's all about providing so much value and doing it in a just, I'm not asking you for anything. Like, ideally, you're in a position where you don't even need, you're like, oh, this is all bonus, right? And again, I mean, I don't want to talk about Naval too much, but he's talking about using authenticity to escape competition. He's saying basically, if you use authenticity, you're never going to have anyone that you're competing with, because no one can compete with yourself, right?
I agree. I mean, most people compete instead of creating, but that's because most people don't want to become the best version of themselves. They want to become what they perceive as a better version than themselves, which is what they see in somebody else be or what somebody else posts to be. When you have the same capabilities, you have the same potential, you just have to work for it extremely, extremely hard. And what I like about the internet is that the internet doesn't take bullshit, right? So now as the creator economy begins to develop, and as you know, people spend time online, things become more transparent. So people will be able to identify authenticity, they'll be able to identify truth, and then they'll be able to identify bullshitters.
Probably blockchain will help in that, because you have all these AI.
For sure. Because
one of the key problem now is like AI. We don't even realize, most of us, but we're in 2024, there is US elections this year. And there was, I think it was Raoul Pal saying, during the US elections, you're going to have crazy arguments with your neighbors, your family members, people you love, just because of AI piece of contents that are going to be targeted at you to make you go crazy, right? And one thing where blockchain can really help is to prove whether all these piece of contents are actually true or not.
The only issue with that, bro, is when you start playing with the humanization and the digitalization of personal identities. So it's like, oh, well, now we need to make sure that whoever's on Instagram or whoever's on Twitter is actually a real human. So now you have to submit your ID. And that's where shit gets kind of crazy. But I look forward to this future, bro. It's going to be fucking wild, because now you don't even know who's commenting. For all you know, Zuckerberg's got all these motherfucking profiles running 24/7, just blasting comments to cause engagement, cause triggers, and for all you know, it's just a troll farm.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Absolutely.
And it's happening. It's happening. I mean, it happens all the time. I think there was an intelligence company out of Israel called Project Judas, and they had 30,000 Twitter accounts, and they would kind of control narratives through those Twitter accounts. And they're not real people. It's just a couple individuals. Now with AI, it's going to be super powered. And I agree with you, bro. It's going to fucking break a lot of people's minds, bro. It's going to be crazy, dude. Fuck. I didn't even take that into perspective for the election, bro.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be wild.
There was already, I mean, Trump won like thanks to data and social media, but it was not like advanced AI like that. So now it's going to be this, but on steroids.
Wow, bro.
So we talk about how much you need sacrifices, patience, consistency, persistence to make it, right? When you're starting to build a company. The problem is millennials and Gen Z, they're impatient as fuck. Because we live in a world where we have everything at our fingertips, right? Coffee, food, dates, porn. Anything we want just at the click of a button. But the really good things in life, a career, a relationship, a business, good health, wealth, they all come from daily compounding, right? Of small actions. What's your message to our impatient generation today if they want to be truly successful tomorrow?
Be impatient towards the good things. Be impatient towards doing the good things every single day. Be impatient towards waking up and going to the gym. Be impatient to get on your sales calls and close those clients. Be impatient to pick up that book and read. Instead of being impatient about the results, be impatient about the input. because you can't control the output. You can control how many seeds you plant. You can't figure out which seed is going to grow and how many apples are going to come from that apple tree. You can't control that. You can't control the day you're going to become a millionaire. If you say, I'm going to become a millionaire in 1 year, good luck, motherfucker, because if that year rolls around and you're not a millionaire, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel unsuccessful. But if you're like, my success is determined by my input and not my output, dude, being patient as a motherfucker, getting that input, grinding, understanding that money, success is a lagging indicator. So hustle, do what you have to do on the input, and then let by natural law, which is a principle that applies to the universe, right? Action causes reaction, input causes output. Focus on what you can control, be impatient about becoming great, and the rest will play out.
It's essentially what Gary Vee says when he says micro speed, macro patience. It's exactly that.
That's very good.
I'm Swiss. In Switzerland, we don't talk about money. We don't even know or dare to ask our parents how much they make.
Really?
You don't do that, no?
Wow.
That's how much taboo the topic of money is in Switzerland. At least might have changed now, but I mean, I'm not old, but like, you know, I don't know how much my father makes or how much he made. Like, and you don't ask that, right? You talk a lot about money, and there is a lot of hate towards men who preach about making money. Why do you think openly talking about money and about making money is so important?
Because money is just a tool. So I talk about money just like I talk about health, just like I talk about self-development and picking up a book and learning topics that you enjoy. Money's just a tool. Money's just a weapon that you utilize to accomplish your goals, but it's essential. And most people have no literacy when it comes to money. I was doing some research as to how the Bible was translated into English. When John Wycliffe, began translating the Bible, he was persecuted. He was persecuted by the clergymen that had the Bible in Latin, and he was persecuted by the Pope, and he was persecuted by the religious political powers. Why? Because at that time, religion was the language of the elite. And it's what kept people in slavery. It's what kept people in bondage and in fear. Today, now that, you know, these spiritual texts have been translated and anybody can digest them, the tool of suppression is no longer religion, it's finance. So finance has now become the language of the elite. There's a reason the tax code is so complicated. There's a reason why they don't teach you money in school. There's a reason why these things are complicated. And it's not because they have to be complicated. It's because they're designed to keep you away from understanding that there are valuable parts of life that you need to master. So when you understand that language is also correlated to your ability to understand, what my goal is to simplify these concepts so that people don't fear them and that they can understand them in a very basic way so that they don't have to depend on a tax accountant, so that they don't have to depend on somebody to tell them how to make money.
A banker.
Exactly.
That takes massive.
They're all the middlemen. They're all the middlemen to God. In God we trust.
Absolutely.
But go through me, motherfucker. That's what they tell you.
That's a really compelling one, because I'm in the banking sector. It's, if you start to, for me, like the journey was since I was probably 21 or 22 when I started the first company. I wanted to retire before 30, right? Whatever that means, a certain number. So I was like, how do I retire before 30? And then we had some employees and we had, a pension, because you have to invest in a pension for your employees. So I was like, how do I, with my pension and with other people's pension, invest this money to retire as quickly as possible? And then you start from there to understand how the entire system is made, that every pension,
it's fucked.
bro. In the UK, you have this self-investment pension plan, SIPP,
I know,
right?
The government invested on your behalf.
So
fucked,
then you
bro.
understand the whole thing, which is you're like, okay, how do I start? I'm going to start about reading about timeless principle of investing. There's not that, they all say the same, right? The little common sense of investing, a bunch of these books. Also, Tony Robbins, he wrote a really good one, which is Money Master the Game and Unshakable, and very simple ones after the great financial crisis to help millennials invest and to make them understand that it's actually not hard. It's just made harder by the ones who need to take a fees, right? And so
you need the middleman to God.
exactly.
And the person that can be the middleman to God will charge you, in order to get to heaven. And when you realize that you don't need a middleman in order to talk to God, and you don't need a middleman in order to learn finance, and you don't need a middleman in order to do anything, the middleman gets upset. And now the middleman not only controls finance, but they also control the school system, because they're the ones that fund the school system, and they're the ones that fund the universities, and they're the ones that fund pharma, and they're the ones that fund food. So now the entire narrative is controlled by this centralized group of people. That's why I call individuals nowadays no longer peasants. They're fiat slaves, because you're slave to something that was created imaginarily by another person that controls you and is expending your life force energy and putting a little $ carrot in front of you, dingling and saying, by the age of 65, you'll be able to retire and you'll be happy, but give me 40 years of your life. It's fucked. So if I can, in some way, shape, or form, kind of at least trigger these conversations for people and be like, maybe let me look at the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Maybe let me figure out why we got off the gold standard and who was actually involved in this process. Let me figure out why Satoshi's narrative of immutable money is actually compelling. And yeah, maybe I don't have to become a scholar when it comes to finances. Maybe I don't have to become somebody that actually understands the ins and outs of everything. But the last thing you want to be is ignorant, because in ignorance, you can get fooled. And most people are ignorant. And what I think sometimes people get upset at is the fact that you're showcasing their ignorance. And sometimes the truth hurts. But I'm willing to offend in order to save a few.
What do you think is the single biggest limiting factor that prevents most people from taking full control of their finance and their future?
Most people blame others. Most people fear the consequences of being responsible for the good things and the bad things of their life. I often tell people, everyone is self-made, but only the successful will admit it. Because the unsuccessful person, they're self-made, but they won't admit it. They'll blame somebody else. They'll blame the imaginary thumb of the government. They'll blame the race. They'll blame the color of their skin, but they'll never look at themselves and be like, what did you not do? Because everybody's quick to be like, oh, well, I am successful. I built this company. But what about when you fucked up? What about when you were inferior, when you were a loser? Did you take accountability for those things? And most people, I think, are just not comfortable with assuming that responsibility. So creating an ethos where we can be vulnerable, creating an ethos where it's okay to fuck up, where it's okay to fail, is going to revolutionize and change through authenticity how people interact and how people talk. And what I often tell people is this fear of failure is induced into us. It's not natural. If you go to the school system, bro, imagine how fucked it is to go to a first grader and give them an F and tell them you failed. Or you know what, because you didn't apply this, and this, you have to stay back with, younger kids and you shame them. Bro, that's fucking degrading. So from the beginning, you're conditioned to not try. Because if you try, there's a chance that you're going to be penalized, and you don't want to be penalized. Nobody wants to be penalized. And then that translates to high school, that translates to university, that translates to the workplace, that translates to your interaction in your entire life. You just want to play it safe. And in that safety, it's all elusive, because at the end of the day, you're going to die. So we all end up being in the same situation because we all are going to end up dead. So there isn't any safety, because we're all going to end up 6 feet under. So if you're going to end up 6 feet under, there's nothing to stress about. There's nothing to worry.
Yeah. I think it's called equanimity, no?
Equanimity.
That's it, right? With the concept of like, don't look at the tree, look at the forest, right? Take a step back and then realize, man, why are we even stressing? I mean, easier said than done, right? But
it can't even be said, and it can't be done. It needs to be felt. And the equanimity is the calmness of the soul. Equanimity means the calmness of the soul. So when you, like Miyamoto Musashi famously said, with your spirit as high as Mount Fuji, you will see all things clearly. And when you can elevate your perspective and you can see that what people are doing, what people think about you, your failures and your wins, they're insignificant
No
when
one
you can
gives a
see it.
fuck.
Nobody cares,
But
brother.
before that, you need to go through the big failures and
Yes.
realize that nothing happened.
Yes.
Which most people will not go through because they're scared.
Yes.
And you're saying that one of the reason or the main reason they're scared is the education system where from young, also early on, it's basically black or white.
Yes.
Right? It's failure or
Winner.
success.
Gold star or
Interesting.
red marker with an F.
Would you go as far as saying that, let's go into the education one because it's a very interesting one.
The education system was created by the Rockefeller Foundation under the Prussian school system, which was the idea of creating factory working bots that don't question, they don't do anything except obey. That's why the school system resembles the industrial era. You raise your hand in order to use the bathroom. There's an assembly line. The bell rings. Therefore, that's your break. That's your cue. You have to be operating just within your little dynamic. You can't explore. You're not supposed to collaborate. You're within your little area of work. This is what you do. But it not only resembles the industrial kind of era, but it also resembles the prison complex. Right? So you have the fluorescent lights, you have the locked rooms, you walk in a line, you go to the yard 1 hour of the day, and you only do it when the bell rings. Dude, can I just, when everybody clips it, all you have to do is look at what a cafeteria looks like in the United States school and look at a cafeteria prison. They look the same. So everything is conditioned from the moment you're young to absolutely create and prune you into being a fiat slave.
Which we all follow, right? We even getting out of this mindset of, and again, my Swiss side will be like, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be like, it's not only about being an entrepreneur, right? You can be a consultant and be happy. You can be
you can even be an
right?
employee. It's not even about that. It's about understanding that what you've been conditioned to believe is a bullshit. What you've been conditioned to feel about reality, what you've been conditioned to understand is true, is not true, and that the systems, the beliefs that you've been given are not yours, and that you're not bound and limited to these things in order to become an individual that achieves greatness. Greatness isn't what Luke Belmar tells you greatness is. Success isn't what Luke Belmar tells you success is. What is your symphony of success? When you hear success, right, what does that mean to you? What does that look like for you? It looks different for you. It looks different for me. But pursue that path. Most people know, hey, I want to pursue something. I want to become somebody. But then because of the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of insecurities, and shame on all these motherfuckers online that talk shit, because the last thing you want to be doing is criticizing and insulting somebody for trying.
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
we're all just trying to make it. So why are you trying to hold the brother down? You know what I mean?
What about
Crazy.
What about your parents? Because obviously your parents, I mean, I'm saying, when I say your, I mean like people's parents, right? My belief is that most parents only, even if they don't know how to communicate it, they truly love their kids.
Yes.
And they want the best for their kids, right?
But just because they want what's best for them, they don't know what is best, right? Just because somebody loves you doesn't necessarily mean they know what's best for you. And what I always tell people is, with your parents, people that have invested their life force energy into nurturing and raising you, especially if they love you. If they don't love you and they treat you like shit, fuck them, right? That's my point of view. But if they've actually empowered you, they've worked hard to help you elevate, they want to see what's best for you, prove them wrong, right? If they don't want to see you elevate, prove them wrong with your actions. Your parents aren't going to be upset if they see you waking up early, if they see you pursuing your dreams, if they see you being productive. If you're not doing anything, you're just playing Fortnite all day, being a lazy piece of shit, they're going to start questioning, well, what is this person doing with their life? And rightfully so. But I think when parents also understand, and a lot of them do, that you're actually being productive and you're putting forth a plan towards success, a lot of them will support it.
Yeah. Because ultimately they just want you to be happy, and they'll feel it and they'll see it if you're happy in whatever you're trying.
And you have to sell them on it. It goes back to what we talked about. You have to sell them, just like you have to sell your girl on staying with you, just like you have to sell your customers on hanging around. You have to sell sometimes your parents on them allowing you and blessing you to pursue different areas of life.
And worst case, if they still don't want it, there is still the possibility of saying, hey, I'll find a whatever shit job or just to not depend on you financially anymore, so I can do my own thing and you don't have a say anymore, right?
You know what? You know what's funny? It was the Thanksgiving of 2017, and I was remember in 2017. I think everybody was talking about crypto or
Yeah.
Bitcoin, and it went up, and then it tanked or some shit.
Yeah.
I think that's where like the entire culture of, hey, during Thanksgiving everybody talks about crypto and everybody tells their grandma to buy. I think it came from the 2017 bull run. But we were going around the table, and my mother asked me. She said, "What are you grateful for?" Right? My mother always asks that during Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for? And I said, "I'm thankful for Bitcoin." And they laughed at me, right? They scoffed me. But last week I sent my mother a Bitcoin, right? And she no longer cares about whether she scoffed me or whether she thought Bitcoin or my gratitude towards it was a good thing or that I'm being thankful for it. She's just happy now that I'm successful, and now she gets to partake in that success. So sometimes you have to eat some shit. Sometimes you have to understand that your vision is your vision, and it was given to you. It wasn't given to your parents. So you don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. But if you're still in their household and you still, want their blessing, then prove them wrong through your actions and be diplomatic through a process of selling them into your vision through action, dedication, and respect.
This applies a lot to actually